Senator Merkley had one question. Patel couldn't answer it. It started with a single question. Not a trap. Not a political ambush. Just one direct constitutional question that anyone sitting in that chair should have been able to answer in under 30 seconds. Kash Patel could not answer it. And the silence that followed, measured, visible, caught on camera, told the committee everything they needed to know about what is actually happening inside one of the most powerful law enforcement agencies in the United States. This is what happened, and why it matters far more than it might appear. Kash Patel was called before the Senate Judiciary Committee to testify on the operational direction of the FBI under his leadership. The hearing had been scheduled for weeks. Both sides knew it was coming. Both sides had prepared. The early portion of the hearing was predictable. Questions about Bureau priorities. Answers about resource allocation. The usual back and forth that fills the first hour of most oversight hearings without producing anything that changes the conversation. Then Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon took his turn. Merkley is not a performer. He doesn't grandstand. He doesn't go viral. What he does, methodically, quietly, with the patience of someone who has read every document in a file before asking a single question, is build a record. And today, he had been building toward one specific question for a very long time. To understand the weight of what Merkley asked, you need to understand what had been happening in the weeks leading up to this hearing. There had been a series of decisions made at the FBI under Patel's leadership that had drawn significant concern from legal scholars, former Bureau officials, and members of both parties on the Judiciary Committee. Not policy disagreements, not ideological objections, structural concerns. Specifically, whether certain actions taken by the Bureau in the previous several months were consistent with the constitutional limits on executive authority, whether the FBI under its current leadership was operating within the boundaries established by the separation of powers, whether decisions that had been made about investigations, about personnel, about the handling of specific cases had been made with proper legal authorization. These are not abstract questions. They have very specific, very documented answers. And the answers either exist in writing or they don't. Merkley had spent weeks trying to find out which it was. He began his questioning calmly. He established the timeline. He walked Patel through a sequence of events, specific dates, specific decisions, specific outcomes, that had been reconstructed from public records, committee documents, and materials provided by current and former FBI personnel. Patel engaged. He answered the early questions with the confidence of someone who had prepared for this portion of the exchange. Then Merkley reached the end of the timeline. He looked down at his notes. He looked up at Patel, and he asked the question, Director Patel, under Article 2 of the Constitution, and in accordance with established separation of powers doctrine, what legal authority did the Bureau rely upon when making the decision we've just discussed? I'm asking specifically, was there a written legal opinion from the Office of Legal Counsel authorizing that action? Yes or no? Because that question has a binary answer. There either is a written OLC opinion, or there isn't. This is not a matter of interpretation. This is not a policy question with room for nuance. The Office of Legal Counsel either produced a written authorization for a consequential executive action, or it did not. Patel looked at his counsel. A brief exchange, too quiet to hear on the audio. Then he looked back at Merkley. The Bureau's legal team reviewed the relevant authorities and determined that the action was consistent with the Bureau's statutory mandate. Merkley didn't move. Director, I asked a specific question. Was there a written opinion from the Office of Legal Counsel? Not from the Bureau's internal legal team. From OLC. Yes or no? Another pause. Longer. I'd need to confirm the specific documentation with my team before I could answer that accurately. Merkley nodded slowly. He had expected this too. So as of today, sitting here before this committee, you cannot confirm whether the Office of Legal Counsel provided written authorization for a significant exercise of executive authority by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Patel began to respond. Merkley continued, calmly, I want the record to reflect that. The director of the FBI cannot confirm, before this committee, whether constitutional legal authorization exists in writing for a consequential decision made by the Bureau. That is the answer we received today. He closed his folder. I yield back. 12 words. That's what the record now contains. Not a leaked document. Not a dramatic confrontation that ends with raised voices and a clip that gets shared 10 million times. Just 12 words from a senator who had done his homework, asked a precise question, and documented the answer, or the absence of one, for the congressional record. But those 12 words carry significant legal weight, because they establish something that investigators, legal scholars, and potential future litigants will be able to point to directly. The director of the FBI was asked whether a specific exercise of executive authority had been legally authorized in writing by the Office of Legal Counsel. He could not confirm that it had. That is not a small thing. The Office of Legal Counsel exists for exactly this reason. When the executive branch, including the FBI, wants to take an action that touches constitutional boundaries, it goes to OLC. OLC reviews the relevant law. OLC produces a written opinion. That opinion becomes the legal foundation for the action. Without that opinion, the action rests on nothing but the internal judgment of the agency taking it. And when an agency with the power of the FBI takes consequential action without documented constitutional authorization, that is the definition of a constitutional problem. Merkley knew this. His question was not a surprise. It was a precision instrument designed to produce one of two outcomes. Either Patel confirms an OLC opinion exists, and the committee requests it immediately, or Patel cannot confirm one exists, and the committee now has a documented statement on the record that a major Bureau action may have been taken without proper constitutional grounding. Today, they got the second outcome. Former DOJ officials who tracked the exchange described it in similar terms. Not explosive. Surgical. The kind of questioning that doesn't generate a viral moment, but generates something more durable. A paper trail. One former senior official put it this way: the most dangerous questions in a congressional hearing are not the ones that make someone sweat on camera. They're the ones where the non-answer itself becomes the evidence. Today's non-answer is now part of the permanent congressional record. It will be cited in future document requests. It will appear in formal committee correspondence to the Department of Justice. It will likely appear in legal filings if this matter proceeds to litigation, which multiple committee members believe it will. Patel's inability to answer a yes or no question about constitutional authorization didn't end the investigation. It deepened it. There is a version of today's hearing that doesn't make headlines. That gets summarized in a paragraph buried in a longer news story. That gets lost in the volume of political noise that fills every day in Washington. But the people on that committee, and the lawyers and officials and investigators watching from outside, know what today actually was. It was a senator asking the most important question you can ask about an exercise of government power. Did you have the legal authority to do what you did? Is it in writing? Can you show us? And the director of the FBI sat in that chair and could not say yes. That answer, the absence of an answer, is now on the record, permanently, in front of the committee, in front of the cameras, and in front of everyone watching. Senator Merkley had one question One precise, constitutional, binary question with a yes or no answer. Kash Patel could not answer it. The committee noted it, the record reflects it, and the investigation into what legal authority actually existed and what happens when it didn't is just beginning.